How you doing, Bishop?
I'm fine, brother Mike. How are you?
Good, good. You are the last of our interviews with the six organizations and or individuals who we selected as our Village Free um, People of the Year for 2020. So I'm honored to get a chance to interview you one-on-one to talk about some of the things that you as a faith leader of various faith-based institutions in Proviso Township, but also as the anchor and the chairman of Proviso Township Ministerial Alliance, the impact and influence that you and your group has had over Proviso Township, and even beyond in the last year. And you all also doing a lot of stuff this year, as you always do. So I kind of just want to allow you to introduce yourself. For those who may not necessarily know who you are,
Okay.
and we can get into the conversation from there.
All right. Thank you, brother Mike. As you mentioned, my name is on the screen there, Bishop Dr. Sappho, and I'm the chairman of the Proviso Township Ministerial Alliance Network, chancellor of the UFP College, as well as pastor of the United Faith Missionary Baptist Church in Maywood, Illinois. For 40-something years, two children. Have I'm gonna mess up on this. I got 5 grandkids. Amen. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. So, but certainly I have a goddaughter. She's our daughter. So actually I have 2 daughters in that way and a son who's in the ministry as well, Reverend Rashad Sappho. We featured him last week on our Wednesday Bible study. PT Man, we launched a Bible study, Doctrines That Matter. So we featured him week before last, actually. So I'm a young man and in spirit, praise the Lord, amen. But I certainly believe in what I do. Been doing it for a while. And I thank God for this opportunity. Let me say that before I go any further, though, Brother Romain. I really am humbled by the selection, by the acknowledgement, by the honor. And, it's just a beautiful thing when you acknowledge for what you do. And you don't do it for that, but it's just, a reward to know that someone's paying attention to your work and trying to make a difference. There are a lot of people doing some great things in Proviso. There are a plethora of servants in Proviso, man, and I just applaud each and every one of them for what they do.
Can you kind of explain what PT Man, how it originated, how the organization came to be, and how you came to be at the helm?
Okay. Well, it's the organization has been around since the 70s. Some pastors under the leadership of Pastor McNulty and now Bishop Claude Porter and some of the other, I think it was Pastor Wade and some of the other noted pastors had gotten together and organized this organization. So it's been, again, it has a lot of years under its wings. And at some point, I think when Pastor McNulty was getting ill, I think at that point, Bishop Porter, he wasn't the bishop at that time, he took over the leadership, and he was running the alliance for years. And then I got involved in the early 2000s, and I joined the organization and began to work with Pastor Porter. At that time, he was Pastor Porter, and I found it to be a very great opportunity to serve the community, to see the church engage in another aspect of ministry. And so, certainly, as you well know, Bishop Porter is well invested in the community transformation business, if you will, and certainly to be a part of his effort to me, it was a great privilege and an honor. So he mentored me in that regard, and so I guess in late 2000s, about 2017, 15, maybe 16, somewhere in there, he began to consider transitioning out of the leadership capacity. And so he called me to the office and said, um, Doc, I'd like for you to take over the PT, man. PT meaning Proviso Township Ministerial Alliance Networks. I need to clarify that because sometimes people misinterpret that to mean men only, but it's for it's not a gender biased kind of organization. It's ecumenical, and so at that point I took over and the leadership. So he now is chair emeritus, and so I've been trying to hold it up. So I stand on a lot of shoulders, brother Mike, and who did their due in their time, and we thank God Bishop is still with us. We talk all the time, confer with him on different matters regarding what we're doing, and so I'm just delighted to be able to serve in that capacity.
You all have your hands in a lot of different aspects of life in Proviso Township, from the schools to public safety. You hold regular meetings, monthly meetings at various churches that are typically attended by area police chiefs and school district board members and village trustees. Kind of explain how you all got into so many different avenues, and for people who don't necessarily know the extent of the influence of the organization. You guys have a lot that you prompted and helped help realize, and we'll talk about some of those in particular a little bit later on. But kind of explain just the breadth of the organization's influence.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And to your point, we are engaged throughout community, and that's by design. That's intentional. One of the things that I did, well, my first challenge when I became the chair of the organization, I wanted to change the perception that people had about our organization, that we were strictly a Maywood Ministerial Alliance, because we held our meetings in Maywood. But that wasn't the case, but it was perceived by the public as being so, and so that kind of restricted our involvement across the township. So I immediately began to rotate our meetings throughout the township to build relationships up with other pastors in the local villages. And it's amazing though, but while we're only a stoplight apart from one another, but in people's minds, we're miles away from one another. So you kind of had to respect the exists in any community, but certainly out here. And so I wanted to certainly let people know that we were a proviso-wide organization, and we cared about every hamlet, every town in this township. So we initiated moving our meetings around. We meet once a month, as you mentioned, and so we started doing that, and that began to open up opportunities for us to galvanize and relationships with other spiritual leaders and these other villages, as well as the elected officials in these various towns. So that was part of our strategy. And then what drives us, we understand the motif of community. One of the key things that's important to transforming a community is to have an incarnated relationship with those communities, a relationship predicated upon respect, integrity, and doism. Get things done. And you don't need a whole lot of people to do that. You just need people who are motivated to the cause. And that's kind of how we have built our model around community transformation by relational actions and building tight relationships that would make people want to recognize us as a valid organization, but not just organization focused on preachers per se or churches per se, but the whole community. So we're holistic, but the force and the impetus of what we do comes from the church. By that I mean our compassion for community, our Christian ethics. That all stems from our relationship with the Almighty. And so we're compelled to serve the least of them, but in a meaningful way, in a strategic way, just not haphazardly, but well thought out strategies that would engage us. And some people have the misconception that churches are only good for gatherings, but we're involved with logistics, analytics, all types of things that make for a wholesome environment for communities striving to become a different place for those who reside there. So that's kind of how we began that, is to be intentional about having a presence and building relationships and seeing communities transition from a C community to a B community, from a B to an A community. So we work collaboratively with making those things happen.
Did a lot in the pandemic too, and you continue to do a lot of community outreach since last March. So, what were some of the things that you all did? How did your organization and its member congregations mobilize to respond to residents' needs once the coronavirus pandemic reached us?
Absolutely. We, like many other organizations in community, we organize a distribution ministry where we our churches gotten together and we partner with now Proviso Baptist Church under the leadership of John Hurrell. He has a big ministry, food distribution ministry going there. And so what we said, well, let's partner with them and set up a distribution center at our various churches. So we covered all of the villages in the township. We had a church providing food to those who were in need for food, non-perishable and perishable items. So we had a schedule we sent that we e-blasted to the community, and it was very, very, very successful. We're able to service a lot of people throughout the township. So we didn't want to be heavy in one place. We wanted to make sure we were balanced throughout because the need was throughout the township. So that was one thing. And then we partnered with the mayor of Broadview, Mayor Katrina Thompson, where we hosted a vaccine testing. I'm sorry, not vaccine, but COVID-19 testing. Hosted that at the Village Hall there. That was done a couple of months ago, where we provided that kind of service to all of Proviso. It was hosted in Broadview, but was open, and we had people from across the township to come. It was a great success, that event. I'm trying to, during the holiday, we had a great event. This is something we're doing that's new. We're partnering with other churches throughout the west suburban area through our RAM, Resource Allocation Ministry, where we partnered for the holiday, for Christmas more specifically, and we had Christmas gifts for a host of children. It was hosted by one of our local pastors in Bellwood, Pastor Pam Lawrence. It was at her church site, but we served over 50 or so families through that effort. Now, this RAM ministry is a new component to PT Man. It's a resource allocation ministry where we are attempting to galvanize all of our resources to meet a specific need in community. So that's new. We're still developing that, but that's going through this COVID pandemic situation.
You all, I want to kind of pivot to some of the other stuff that you all did that you were influential in doing last year. But when you were talking about your outreach, I recall one of the first times that I wrote about you and PT Man, Bishop, was, I think this was in 2014 or 15, there have been a series of really big fights at the end of the school year in Proviso East, and you all figured you needed to do something about it, and I think you all took to the corners the year after that happened. The big fight, I forget the year, involved police officers and sheriff deputies,
helicopters
and TV news cameras,
SEAL Team 6.
Right. And so you all you mobilized, I think the following year, and there were no major incidents.
That's right. That's right.
Kind of explain how that came into being, and how that kind of how that approach sort of governs your outreach to the schools, because you guys have a big influence in the school district too.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, that was true. I forget which year it was. So forgive me on that, but there was an incident with the last year, that year, where the school was let out with a big fight, and the following year. And I felt compelled. I said, man, we got to do something. We can't just sit idly by and not do anything. So I got the pastors together, and we built a team where we went in, and we collaborated with other community partners as well. But we were intentional about having a presence in the school. So we wore our clergy collar, and they gave us permission to come into the schools. And one of the other benefits, because I subbed at East, this was at East, and I knew a lot of the students, but they didn't know I was clergy. They just knew as Mr. Sappho, and some knew. They called me Bishop, but there was a few. But when they saw me there, and then some of my other colleagues, it was very impressionable, and I was able to interact with them. And to your point, we walked the hallways. We posted up after the school, when the school was being terminated, let out for the day. We posted up at different sites, areas in the school, along the walkway where they would go home. And it made a difference, man. I mean, people say what they want to say, but there was a respect given to us because we respected them. And some of the other community organizations partnered with us as well. And there has not been an incident as of the last time we had an official school dismissal for the summer. There's not been an incident. And we went to West. We were always at East. So West invited us over. We went to West, no incident. We use the same model. Go into the school, speak to the students, respect them, show them respect. They showed us respect, show them love. They showed us love. And we posted up along the routes. It was no problem, man, no problem at all. And I thank God for that. So our presence did make a difference. And then we intend to keep that going as long as we're invited to be present at the school. Absolutely. And then let me say this, that gave way to our other program, UFR, Urban First Responders, where we respond to the violence in the community. And that was headed up by Reverend Allen, Reverend Allen. He was a former Maywood police officer, and he was the director of that program. There was a training piece that we put together and collaborated with Loyola Hospital, the chaplaincy, and we put together a training piece for our urban first responders, and we would respond to acts of violence when we are called by the hospital. Would call us, notify us there's been a shooting, so forth and so on, and the person has requested intervention. So we would send a team of these clergy persons. They all weren't clergy, they're lay people and clergy who make up the UFR team. And we took this model and took it to the city, some other communities as well, to set in place this Urban First Responders program. Yeah. I can keep going on and on, man.
I know. You have your tentacles in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And then they're not just fly-by-night, one-off initiatives that go away after a week or a day.
Right.
They are
right. Well, about our
sustainable.
our 4x4 program. I'm very proud of that. If you don't mind me
Yeah,
mentioning
no,
that, that's
no, go ahead.
that's our summer youth internship program, and that began. That we're going into our year 6 now with that program. That came out of a frustration. I looked around, and there was some of the summer jobs were not being funded at that particular year, 5 years ago, and there was no funding available for the segment of kids that we wanted to target. Those were under the 16, from 12 to 16. So I called my cabinet together. I said, we got to do something about this. And one of them, it was mentioned, well, there's no funding. Well, we fund it. I said, here we get up on Sundays, preach great is he that's in the world, and we don't produce nothing. I said, so we're obligated. See, I'm getting that Baptist stuff getting ready to stir up in me, Mike. I'm trying to hold it down. I said, we're obligated to make a difference. These are our children. We don't need to wait for someone else to give us something. We do it ourselves. I said, so I'm going to challenge each of you to produce, to funding, so that we can underwrite this program. And sure enough, that first year, I think we hosted 10 kids to do interns with local businesses. We wrote the checks. They gave them the opportunity. And that thing has grown. So now we're doing 30. And through not only in Proviso, but Naperville. One of our partners out of Naperville, we've expanded into DuPage County, and one of our partner churches out of Naperville embraced the program in Naperville, and it's called the Smile Project. And they sent the project as a model to their headquarters. It was recognized on the national level of that denomination, Unitarian denomination, as one of the best programs to respond to. They're big into social justice. So that was a good program that they recognized to help respond to youth violence, curtailing youth violence and anti-violence initiatives. So that program has got great recognition across the nation. So we're excited about it, and we thank our partners for working with us, for hosting our site partners. We get these kids in professional environments. A lot of them going on now in college. Man, you should hear the reports from some of these kids. And these are kids that would not be able to get summer jobs because of their age, but they're old enough to be victims of the gangs. Gangs will prey on them, 12, 13, 14. So we pull them into this program, exposed to not just sweeping floors, mopping floors, nothing wrong with that, but we expose them to more professional environments as well. We got a kid working at Maywood Appliance Shop. He's learning, and then one at the hardware in Broadview, he learned how to make keys. I mean, they're learning trades, and they're happy about it. And look, some of the jobs turn into permanent jobs while they're in school. So, I mean, this was done as an initiative where we came together, put our funds together, underwrote the program, and the kids are working. The parents are happy. Man, it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing.
And speaking of the young people, you all were involved in two pretty big developments out of District 209 last year. One was the school board's passing of a mandatory required Black History course. And the other were the opening of two math and science academies at both Proviso East and West that were basically patterned after Proviso Math and Science Academy, which everybody knows is a selective enrollment school.
Right. Right.
Just came out with new enrollment data, and I think you got between the academies at East and West, upwards of 1,000 kids who are now in math and science academies at Proviso East and West, who probably would not have been able to benefit from that curriculum, that more rigorous curriculum, if PMSA were the only selective enrollment school in the district. So, kind of explain what PT Man's role was in the Black History course, in the
Okay.
development of that Black History course, and what were you what was the role in the development of the separate math and science academies at East and
Okay.
West?
All right. Thank you, Mike. With the history program, I had some great people around me. Certainly, the school board president, he wasn't at the time, but and as well as a young man by the name of Mike Barris and certainly Barbara Cole. We made up a team. We're very concerned. Brother Alexander over at the board, we were concerned about the presence of the Black History curriculum. Again, I worked in the school, so I had opportunity to get a bird's eye view of what was going on, and for the most part, everything in my estimation was up to par. But I noticed there was a weakness there, in my opinion, with in terms of the Black History curriculum. I think it was offered only as an optional course. It was not a required course. And certainly in light of what was going on, and this was before all of the blowout about Floyd and Brother Floyd and all of the other outbursts throughout that summer. This occurred as the year before then. I was very concerned about not only myself, but as I mentioned, those other people were just as concerned about the lack of an intentional curriculum and making it required as a subject for all of the students to take, not just for Black students alone, but for all of the students to understand the Black struggle, what it means to be Black in America, and not just to hear about inventions. That's fine, but to know about the nuances of what it means to be in this Black skin, and what the contention and the tension that exists between America and its Black citizens. And so that's kind of the premise for what we was doing. And I looked at that, and so I called Brother Alexander and a young man, Brother Mike Barris. He pulled some stats together. He's a statistician. He pulled some stats together, and we looked at how the performance of our curriculum was was under par in terms of providing that adequate education piece about the Black constituency in this United States of America. And so we began to talk about it. And so I said, we need to, and Bishop Porter was there as well, was at his office. So we said, we need to challenge the school about this. This is a problem. It's very problematic. And so, especially at a school where you had a predominant, at the time, was very predominant African American. And so, so anyway, they took it up as an issue. Brother Alexander, he was on the board. He wasn't the president. So he said, I'll take it to the board. And he did. And we had some other data that we shared with them about why they should consider. And then it was legislative. Senator Lightfoot had made it she initiated a bill to make it a requirement. So it was a state requirement as well. So there was some dereliction in the schools, districts, not only Proviso, but other school districts were not carrying through on the legislation. So that was another issue. So it's a law, but nobody's adhering to it. So anyway, Mr. Alexander took it up as an issue with the board. They moved on it, and it's a process. They've been I have to acknowledge, they've been very, in my opinion, frank about working through, and they're now at the point of launching a curriculum that would speak to that whole issue of Black history, historicity of the Black community, not only from its role as contributor in commerce, but the philosophical issue about being Black and what that means. And in the United States, some people don't understand the contention, why there's some degree. Some may argue that there's no tension. There is some real, I beg to differ. There is some tension in certain segments, social systemic racism. And so how we have to navigate through, and how we have to use social, or how should I say, racial contextual critical thinking and analysis to navigate through corporate America, and so forth and so on. So, and I think people need to understand that how we live with that tension. and so I don't think that's fully understood by the other races. And I think that's why we were really adamant about it. Then the second point you raised about the academy, that was also, we did a research. Why are there a low number of Black students at PMSA? I was very concerned about that. And so I raised the point. Why there no, there was a high enrollment at one time, but it began to dive off. And so I was concerned, drop off. I was concerned about that. So we began to look into that, and we did a survey. We did our homework. We did our research. And what we discovered, however, was that there were a lot of qualified Black students who could get into PMSA, but they didn't want to because they wanted to have the high school experience. And at first we thought, well, this is is this intentional that they are diverting our students to other schools and not giving them access to PMSA? But it was not intentional. It was a lot of us the decision of some of the high school students that from our survey that we discovered they didn't want to go to PMSA even though they could qualify. And so I threw that to the board, to President Alexander. They took it, looked at it, and I think it was the board, somebody on the board or one of the former principals or someone came up with the idea, well, you know what? Let's put PMSA at East and at West. If they want to have the high school experience, let's give them that high school experience, also conjunction with the academics. So we got the best of both worlds. So that's kind of how that came about. And so it was really a partnership, a collaboration, a community, and the system working together to serve the community. I always say, Brother Mike, if the systems pull themselves together and listen to the voice of the community, the systems will then work better in serving that community. Because the system has to remember, if the community pulled out overnight, you wouldn't exist. There wouldn't be a need for you. There wouldn't be a need for the police department or the libraries or whatever, because the community has vacated. But in as much as the community exists, then you are there to serve the community. I think some have gotten it twisted over the years. They think that the community is to serve them, but that's not the case. And we're here to correct that notion and that narrative. We serve the community. And so I have to admit that as far as my interaction with a lot of the systems that make up a community, we've had great collaboration with them. And I think a lot of them just need some input from community, some honest input in terms of what's expected, and to work with them and to say to them, we'll be a partner. We're just not going to be an advocate. We're going to be a partner in showing you how to get it done. So anyway.
Yeah, I really appreciate that insight. I kind of want to end the dialogue on getting your thoughts about how that you talked about that relationship between community and systems, and you know your role as a faith leader and as the pastor of a church, and how you know you are integral to that sort of dynamic, that interplay. What do you see as the role of the church in kind of being a mediating force between community and larger systems, systems that you had previously discussed? You know, what's the church's role, you know, as a functionary in that relationship after COVID-19? You know, post-pandemic.
Yeah, post-pandemic. Tell me about that. That's a game changer, man. Everything's gonna be, I think, rewired. And I think that the thinking about church's involvement, you know, now that people have been introduced to this virtual world, it's changed the game. However, community systems still have to exist and function, to your point, and the church has to play. Now, keep in mind, the church is a part of the system. It's the religious system or the moral agency in community. So it's one of those entities that make up a community system, or what I call the community concentric circle of community. And so But the church has, and I say this with no disrespect, but we have to be clear on our function and our functionality. Certainly, we are to bring the lost to Christ, and that's our primary function, is to save souls. And then at the same time, we're concerned about the welfare of where those souls reside in community. I mean, think about it. When Zacchaeus met the Lord, he immediately changed. He was a part of the tax collector system, and certainly, and he was a cheat. He was doing like a lot of these fellows were doing with the property taxes, cheating the community. And so, but when he got converted, the community benefited. He went back and became and issued the first stimulus check. He said, whatever I took from the community, I'm going to return it fourfold. So he gave stimulus checks to those who he ripped off. But he corrected because of the moral rectitude and the pressures that was placed upon him, not from the standpoint of making him do it, but from the standpoint of making him see there's a righteous way of doing things in community as a system. He made that systemic correction, and it took the burden off of the people. So I think we play a dual role, and that is to speak to the theological and the spiritual aptitude of community, and at the same time challenge the system to be fair, not to be tyrannical, but show compassion and listen to the pain of the people and respond. And sometimes the people pain has to be amplified, and the church can function as that amplifier of the pain. But yet, with proper intellect and proper understanding, show the system how to address it. Develop analytics. See, we're not just a place where we herd people. We're not a herder agency. We think too, the church. We know how to engage and come up with systemic and structural ideas to move people along. So I think there has to be a respect on the other side of the equation, where the system see the church not as a place where people are herded, but as thinkers and partners and contributors to solving community issues. And so that was something we had to work at too, because they didn't see us as in that light. They didn't. They saw us as a place where pass out flyers or host breakfast and eat and talk and so forth. But no, we're thinkers. We're concerned about community. We know how to move things, move people, and construct strategies that make sense. Biblical strategies. I mean, everything that we address in community is based from a theological perspective. I can show you in scripture where we build our models from, that what we do. So therefore, that's why we are successful, because God is in the details and not the devil. Preach, somebody. I didn't mean to go there.
No, that's a very rich point. It made me think of the civil rights movement. The Montgomery bus boycotts, and how that was a strategic movement that was rooted in the church. And so I think you make a really good point.
Absolutely. And I think that had to be a learning process for our community partners to see us in that light, like they'd never seen us in that light before. And I understand that, and I respect that. So we had to work hard to show our intelligence, to show our due diligence, to win their respect. And I get it. And I think we've done a great job in doing it. There are great people in this community to work with. We don't do this by ourselves. It's about building relationships. It's about collaboration. It really is about respecting one another and what they do. I have a high regard for what these other organizations do. They'll tell you, I respect what they do. And we can't do it all, but collectively, like the African proverb says, by yourself, you can run faster, but together we can go further. And that's the motif that I work from.
I appreciate you taking the time out to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Of course, we appreciate what you all are doing in the community, and your emphasis on being churches without walls and helping people.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I kind of want to give you an opportunity to kind of explain what you guys are doing now, and some things
Okay.
that you may have in the pipe. Maybe say any events or anything, and if people want to contact you all and want to get involved, obviously your website is scrolling underneath the screen. But if you have an email or a phone number, I can put it up there.
Absolutely. Thank you, man. You've been great. Been a great host. I thought you was gonna do me like meet the press, but you didn't. You're very kind to me. So, but what we do have in the pipeline is we're working to create entrepreneurs in our community. We have a program, Stop the Violence, Start a Business. And we have workshops. Matter of fact, we have workshops scheduled tomorrow morning. They can go to the UFCI Bible College.org website, and it's called the EDGE program. And we're working collaboratively with PLCCA on this effort. It's an anti-violence program. We think that those who want to start businesses should start them, but some people need to push, and then they need to know how. And then those who are in business, perhaps you want to go to the next level. You got to understand your business has a social variable attached to it. And we're trying to get that message out that there's a social ramification to what you do. You're helping to address social ills by employing people. Money answers all things. And so by encouraging those persons who desire to be entrepreneurs, we have this workshop, a dynamite workshop set up to do that and to inspire them to go forward. It's not the pocket, it's the pain. It's the pain. You're responding to the pain in the community. And I think that that's something that we want to see grow and take root. So we're having a series of workshops. Again, go to the website, ufcibiblecollege.org, and click on the EDGE program. And it's under the More tab. And you'll find more about that. And I just want to thank you for sharing, allow me to share Brother Mike. And our email is the ptmanministry.org. I'm sorry, ptmanministry@gmail. I'm sorry, man, all these different acronyms, synonyms, benonyms. ptmanministry@gmail.com. You can email us or 708-397-6944. You can phone us. And we'd love to talk with you, love to work with you. We'll work with anyone who has a righteous focus in saving and serving our community. Again, thank you, brother, for this opportunity. And God bless you, what you're doing. You are a mighty man in media. You're making a difference. And God's blessing is upon you as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Bishop. We appreciate your impact, your influence. We're sure you guys are going to continue making influence in the years to come. And we just, are honored to be able to highlight that and to platform it in the limited way that we can. So thanks again. I appreciate you. And
Likewise.
We'll be sharing this out soon, along with the 5 other interviews that we did. And, we'll also start, hosting some more of these conversations on dialogues and conversations on an ongoing basis with newsmakers and proviso like you. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. I'm thankful for the opportunity again. And thank God for you and what you do. God bless you. Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a late breaking question that somebody again, for people who may have been a little late. Bishop, you live in Bellwood, right? But you pastor in Maywood.
That's correct. That's correct. Right.
Yeah.
That's correct. So, and I thank God. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while, as you well know. Been doing this for a while, and I'm not a novice at this. And and I thank God for the opportunity to meet people like yourself and others. We know we've worked on projects ourselves, and so, and again, thank you, brother. You. Yeah, and God bless you, and God bless the audience as well.
Thank you so much.
All right.